Gather round, fellow sickos. We are here. We're in the building. Run it back, Philly. Sixers sickos. Peep the jersey, though. TJ Maxx find yesterday, man. TJ Maxx find yesterday. I'm becoming an Allen Iverson jersey collector. Yeah, shout out to everybody in here, man. Thanks for being here. Before we get started, do me one favor. Close out the chat and hit the like button. Whether you agree or disagree with the topic of this video or stream, or you agree or disagree with the thumbnail, I posted it on Instagram, and it has a bunch of comments, and people are not happy about it. This is like, look, I have a lot of fun with the offseason because this type of stuff is fun for me because people get very serious when you say things about players that they hate with a passion. And I'm not a giant Kevin Durant fan in the first place. I've said this over the past couple of years, but I need you to hear me out, okay? I need you to hear me out. Before we get started, what's going on, everybody? Who's in the chat? My man Prince Monito, members are in the chat. Shout out to Prince Monito. Scott Lawrence, member of the channel. Hey, Sicko Nation, member of the channel. Shout out to the members in the chat. Yeah, 5 takes in the chat. Let's go. I like this one by Luke Russell, okay? This is such a weak draft. We'd benefit from someone like Caruso playing next to Maxey. He said the trade probably won't be for a star. If I had to guess, I'd say someone like Caruso joins the team for that pick. Well, Luke, I have news for you. The man in charge is Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey does not trade for Alex Caruso's. Daryl Morey trades for stars. It's what he does. And I think the Kevin Durant thing is actually realistic. Of course, it's hypothetical, but it's a big if. It's if the Phoenix Suns come to their senses. And I'm going to tell you why I think it could be realistic and why I think it's actually a perfect decision for the Sixers for where they are right now, regardless of my actual thoughts on Kevin Durant as a personality. RJ7 Deuce was good. Thanks for being a member of the channel. Yeah, so let's bring up the, thought I had the whole show set up. Here we go. Sixer Galaxy. The Sixers are seen league-wide as a candidate to trade their 2024 first-round pick per Sam Vicini of The Athletic. And, of course, they're seen league-wide to trade their first-round pick. First of all, it's Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey trades picks. It's what he does. He's had teams in win-now mode his entire career as a GM. Even when he first took over the Rockets, they could have went into a full-on rebuild, but he traded for James Harden and started that show, pretty much right off the jump. If there's anything left positive to say about Daryl Morey's tenure as a GM, it is that his teams don't go into rebuild mode. He swindles things. He figures out ways to flip teams and consistently put at least hypothetically, a competitive roster on a team going towards the playoffs. This year ended up not being as competitive as a roster as we had thought. That could just be how good the New York Knicks were defensively, because watching a lot of other teams around the league, especially in the Eastern Conference, it's depressing to think about how successful the Sixers could have been in these playoffs had it not been the very physical New York Knicks, who just were a bad matchup for them. And, call it what it is. We're allowed to play full contact basketball for an entire playoff series, and now they're no longer getting those calls, and look what's happening. They're tied 2-2 with the Indiana Pacers. But yeah, of course Daryl Morey is expected to trade that pick because he's Daryl Morey, but also the Sixers, once again, should have absolutely no interest in drafting a 19, a 20, a 21-year-old rookie out of the draft. It's just not going to happen. I know a lot of you guys in your chat already saying, don't trade the pick. Use that pick to draft this guy and this guy and this guy. There's a thing where NBA fans, and I used to fall into this. I fell into this in like that. I remember the Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball draft and how the Lakers fell into like believing that Lonzo Ball at 20 years old was going to turn around their franchise. We for some reason think that we're going to draft a player that's going to do something his rookie season. It just doesn't really happen that often unless you're getting the LeBron James of the world, the Anthony Edwards of the world, the Victor Wembanyama's of it. It's very rare. When you draft a player, you need 3-4 years to really see what they're capable of. You saw Tyrese Maxey was coming off the bench his rookie year and even got, shunned by Doc Rivers a little bit his first season. But anyway, that's why the Sixers are expected to trade the pick. Of course, they are in win-now mode, whether you want them to be or not. Every year right now, when you have Joel Embiid on your roster, and every year his knees scream for help more than they did the year before, you are in win-now mode. The Sixers are going to try to win with Joel Embiid the next 3-4 seasons, if there's even 3-4 seasons of Joel Embiid left. And when he's healthy, he's unbelievably unstoppable. But every year now, it's the inevitable injury, and it's sad, but, there might not be 4 years of Joel Embiid left if he keeps re-injuring these knees and meniscuses and things like that. If he could stay healthy, I think he could play into his mid-30s as his athleticism declines, and he could be more of a Tim Duncan type of player. But, the Sixers they're going to trade the pick. They're going to trade the pick. And if they don't, I've seen Daryl Morey sit around before and refuse to trade the pick. And what did he do? He drafted Jaden Springer. You know what I'm saying? Okay, he drafted Tyrese Maxey at 21. Some people call that luck. Some people call that an obvious choice at that point in the draft. But do you even have faith in Daryl Morey picking somebody in this draft? And is this draft class even good enough to be using this pick? Is this draft class good enough for this pick to have much value in a trade? I don't think this pick gets you Alex Caruso. But Kevin Durant is on the thumbnail because of, in my opinion, I think it should be obvious. The Phoenix Suns should be interested in getting rid of Kevin Durant. The Phoenix Suns should be interested in trading him because they are in big trouble if they don't. And I'm going to talk about salary cap and the apron and things like that, and why I think the Suns should trade Kevin Durant and why I think he's the Let's look at the fit first of all, okay? Because people are saying Kevin Durant's washed. You don't want Kevin Durant. He's injury prone. He's another injury prone 35-year-old. Here's exactly why it would make sense for the Sixers. In my opinion, feel free to disagree if you want to. Kevin Durant is one of the best one-on-one scorers in maybe the history of the NBA. He's one of the most unstoppable shooters in the mid-range in maybe the history of the NBA. I wasn't very fond of Kevin Durant. I'm still not very fond of him as a personality. I don't think I'm fond of Kevin Durant as a team leader. But as Kevin Durant declines, and you guys saying, he's 35, don't trade for him, that's kind of why I want to trade for him. Because I think this past season in Phoenix, it became clear to everybody that Kevin Durant is no longer that guy that you should expect to take a team anywhere without some significant help. And maybe he should have never been considered that in the first place, although he almost took the Brooklyn Nets somewhere if his toe wasn't on the line, yada, yada, yada. I think as Kevin Durant declines in the next couple of seasons athletically, he morphs into a perfect third option. He morphs into an absolutely perfect third option. You guys are talking about Brandon Ingram. You guys are talking about whoever else. 35-year-old Kevin Durant is a better playoff scorer than Brandon Ingram. And will he be done in 3 years? Maybe. Will he be worth anything in 3 years? Probably not. But you don't have to worry about it because he only has 2 years on his contract. You're literally trading for 2 years of Kevin Durant. And answer me this in the chat. How about this? Answer me this in the chat. Because in the playoffs, the Philadelphia 76ers' biggest issue was what? Joel Embiid's health. But outside of that, when Joel Embiid was healthy, the Sixers' biggest issue was what? Third option. Because when you're doubling Joel and Tyrese Maxey was dropping 40, it still wasn't enough. There was still major parts of a game where you were relying on who? Kelly Oubre, because you couldn't rely on Tobias Harris. So answer me this in the chat. If you give me last season Kevin Durant instead of Tobias Harris, the Sixers are in the NBA Finals, yes or no? I really think if you give me last season 35-year-old Kevin Durant instead of Tobias Harris, then the Sixers, their third scoring option is obviously a high-level guy who just averaged 27 a game on the Phoenix Suns at age 35. But I also then don't think the bench looks as weak as it did because you still had Kelly Oubre who would have been coming off the bench. Things would have looked so much different if you had somebody like that in place of that $40 million hole in the roster. And I seriously think that. I'm happy with trading the pick if it gets the right piece in return. I sure as hell wouldn't trust Morey to make a good draft selection at 16. I don't think there's anyone in this draft that's really worth looking at 16 for the Philadelphia 76ers. No, because you can't depend on Embiid's health. Well, then we should stop. We should stop watching the Sixers then. You have to take everything as assuming Joel Embiid's healthy. Again, you don't walk outside assuming you're going to get hit by a bus. You assume you're going to cross the street. You might get hit by a bus, but you're not like, might as well not even go outside because I'm probably going to get hit by a bus. Now, if you got hit by a bus 8 years in a row, like Joel Embiid's injury, then maybe you stop crossing the street. I feel you on that. But you have to take everything into account. You have to always look at everything if Joel Embiid's healthy. You just have to. Because when he's healthy, he's the best in the world. Is he most of the time not healthy when it matters? Yes. But that's the position that we are in. And we're going to be there for another 2, 3, 4 years. Anyway, so you might as well get used to it. I'm going to talk about the salary. I'm going to talk about how I think this could actually happen. And I'm going to talk about why I think it would be a good idea for the Sixers to do. But first, this is brought to you by Game Time Ticket App. Go to gametime.co or download the Game Time Ticket App and use the code CLNS for $20 off of your ticket purchase. I'm on the website right here, and I just want to show you guys how Game Time works and how they give you better deals. As events get closer, available tickets get cheaper. And you can see right here on the website right now, tonight, a ticket in Madison Square Garden. Here's a cheapest flash deal example on GameTime.co. There's a $302 ticket in Madison Square Garden. And if you know anything about the prices in New York City and the prices to attend a playoff game in Madison Square Garden, $302 is dirt cheap. Not saying any of you want to go to the Pacers-Knicks game, but if you did want to go, you can go on Game Time and get one for $302 right now. We're all rooting for the Pacers, of course. TJ McConnell out there doing his thing and hounding Jalen Brunson, who's no longer getting the Trae Young whistle. Wow, must be nice to be able to play a series and actually be allowed to play defense, but it is what it is. The NBA hates the Sixers. But yeah, that's how Game Time works, man. The tickets get cheaper as the event gets closer. Go to gametime.co or download the Game Time app. Use the promo code CLNS for $20 off. This one's really close to the court for $1,000. That's crazy cheap. Yeah, shout out to Game Time for sponsoring the channel. Now let's get back to business. This is the thing. The Phoenix Suns should absolutely be interested in trading Kevin Durant because they are in big trouble. The Phoenix Suns are so far over the salary cap apron. They have such a large tax bill, and they are not good. This is a tweet from Evan Sidery, which I think is funny. The Suns are expected to be very, very aggressive on the trade market leading up to the draft. Keep an eye on Nasir Little. Bro, if the Phoenix Suns try to fix their disaster of a team by trading Nasir Little and whatever first-round picks they have left, they're just going farther into the basement. It would be unbelievable. It wouldn't shock me that much because I thought the trading for Kevin Durant was crazy, and then I thought trading for Bradley Beal was even crazier, and they got swept in the first round. And probably this offseason, it's been rumored mostly that they're going to keep this big three together and try again, but you got swept, bro. You didn't even show any signs of this being a good thing. And so they're probably going to trade the first round picks they have left and Nasir Little or something to try again. But you're also messing with Kevin Durant, who if you don't do something, he's going to be like, look, I got a couple years left in my career. Probably I don't want to do this anymore. We've seen him do it. We saw him do it in Brooklyn. Here's why the Suns should be interested in unloading it. This is the NBA salary caps and what teams are over the luxury tax and in the penalty. The Boston Celtics are in the penalty. They did it the right way. They're paying a $40 million penalty, but a $40 million penalty for the roster that they have is worth it, right? The Denver Nuggets are $22 million in the penalty. I would say that's worth it. The Golden State Warriors, they sold their soul to win a couple of rings, and now they're on the way out, so they're paying $176 million $176 million penalty is absolutely insane. The LA Clippers are paying $142 million salary cap penalty to lose in the first round. And apparently they're going to try to bring James Harden and Paul George back, which, again, the Clippers and the Suns both absolutely cracking me up at this point. And there you have the Phoenix Suns, who just got swept in the first round, who are paying a $68 million tax penalty for being over the apron. Now, they have no draft picks moving. They have 2 tradable draft picks, but other than that, they have no draft picks until, 2030-something. You traded 6 seconds for Bradley Beal. You just got swept, and there's no option for them to fix this. And they're just going to fall farther and farther into this penalty. At some point, the owners are like, okay, I'm tired of paying $70 million out of pocket to get swept in the first round. If they come to their senses, they would try to fix this issue before it gets much worse. And trading Kevin Durant is how they need to fix that issue. I really, really think that. Shout out to Shizo Flex with a super chat from 2019 until now in the playoffs. I've heard we have the best player in the series, but Embiid gets outplayed by other teams' best player every time. I would say Joel Embiid is injured every time. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. But when Joel Embiid is healthy, gets outplayed by the other team's best player. So you're telling me Joel Embiid got outplayed by Jalen Brunson in this series? I'm pretty sure Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey averaged over 30 points per game in the series. I understand in Game 6 the performance wasn't immaculate, but Joel Embiid on one knee and half of his face paralyzed still put up star performances in this playoffs. I think he had some of his best playoff performances of his career in this series against the New York Knicks. He had a 50-point game, for crying out loud. The Sixers had no help. They had no help. I know everybody wants one player to drag, Cameron Payne to the NBA Finals. It just doesn't happen. You need more. Him and Tyrese Maxey did everything you could ask of a number 1 and a number 2. They had the absolute worst bench production in the NBA, and they completely fell off a cliff as soon as Joel Embiid went to the bench. I can't blame Joel Embiid for that series, even him being injured. It sucks that he was injured. I think if he was healthy, we have a better chance, but we were still Tobias Harris is the reason, guys. Let's call it what it is. But yeah, the Suns should be looking to unload that if they come to their senses, I think they will make that move. And you can't tell me that Kevin Durant, straight up in place of Tobias Harris, doesn't make the 76ers a championship contender. And then, you would still have some money left over to boost up the bench somewhat, and you could go into the apron if you wanted to. The 76ers, after signing Tyrese Maxey, will have about $55 million in cap space. So another thing is you don't have to send out players in a trade for Kevin Durant. You would be able to trade draft picks if the Suns deem them valuable enough, and you could pay Kevin Durant's remaining 2 years' salary off of cap space alone. That would be most of that $55 million. So there's that also. But what other choice do you have? DJ is thinking that a billionaire will comes to his senses. He has too much ego. That's probably true. That's probably true. And that's probably why the Phoenix Suns are in the situation in the first place. Thanks for being a member for 25 months, my dude. But yeah, I think if the Suns come to their senses, it's the move that they should make. And I think the Sixers being able to cover the last 2 years of Kevin Durant's contract makes perfect sense. And again, if you're just looking at 2 or 3 more years of Joel Embiid, you would be trading for 2 years of Kevin Durant, who is still an elite scorer in the NBA. Kevin Durant in place of Tobias Harris, come on, bro. And I don't even like the guy. I couldn't stand what he did leaving OKC, blowing a 3-1 lead to the Golden State Warriors and then going and joining the Warriors. I think that's the least competitive thing I've ever heard in my life. At least do what LeBron did and go form your own team somewhere else and try to take down the Warriors, But, I think if it was on the table, if it's on the table, Daryl Morey's doing it. That's what we got to think about too, because you can agree, disagree, we should do this, we should do that. What is Daryl Morey going to do? That is always the question. And also, if the Suns would decide to unload Kevin Durant and try to get rid of the last 2 years of his contract at 35 years old, how much would you really have to give up for him at that point? They have this year's draft pick, which I don't think has much value at 13. They have 2026 draft pick, which is the better of 3 teams, OKC, Houston, somebody else, which I don't think has crazy value either. And they have an unprotected 2028 Clippers pick, which has incredible value. And if the Suns were like, let's just go into a rebuild, Devin Booker's still, 28 years old. We still got years to try to win with him on the roster. The whole Devin Booker conversation's for another day, but I think the Suns could really, really value that unprotected 2028 Clippers pick. And, maybe Paul Reed's in there to clear some more cap space for the Sixers. Maybe Tobias Harris sign and trade. Maybe something crazy like that. But, yeah, if a billionaire would come to his senses, I think they would unload Kevin Durant. And I think it makes perfect sense for the Sixers for the next 2 years to try to win with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And that's what they're going to do. You got to accept it. They're going to go all in for the next couple years. They're not going to save draft picks. They're not going to draft the 19-year-old. That's not going to happen. If this happens, I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at it. I really would not be mad at it. What do you guys think, man? What are you talking about in the chat? Declining Bron and KD are easily the greatest third options. Exactly. Exactly, bro. That's what I mean. Kevin Durant declining is a ridiculous third option. Can we please just build an actual team for once? We are finally free of Tobias's contract, and you want him to immediately pour all of that into the softest superstar of all time. I wouldn't even call Kevin Durant a superstar anymore. I want them to dump that into a really, really good third option. Because if you're saying, please build an actual team, what would your first move be? Going to try to get a really, really good third option, right? Also, building an actual team for once takes much more time than one offseason. You don't have that much time. Daryl Morey knows he doesn't have that much time. He wasted time holding on to Tobias. He wasted time trying to beg James Harden to come back for a whole season, a whole offseason. You don't have time to build an actual team. You can't do what the Oklahoma City Thunder did because they did it the right way. You did it the wrong way. Or the NBA forced Sam Hinkie out and they didn't force Sam Presti out. What else you guys got in the chat, man? Embiid is our best franchise player in history. Better than AI, better than Dr. J. Trading him would be the most snake move ever. Okay, let's go there, Rubber Band Man. I don't know if you're replying to someone in the chat or something, but I'm not even talking about trading Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid's the most talented center I've ever seen with a basketball. You can't say he's the best franchise player in history because Allen Iverson was 5'10", $150, and has 4 scoring titles and took a team of Eric Snow and Aaron McKee to the NBA Finals, past the Paul Pierce Celtics, past the Vince Carter Raptors. Come on, bro. Dr. J? Dr. J was the face of the ABA. He was a bona fide, ahead of his time superstar and won a championship in 1983. So we can't say Embiid's better than those two guys until he stays healthy and gets it done. But he is the most skilled center I've ever seen. Let's see. What else you got, man? I wouldn't trade Embiid for prime LeBron. What? What? I would trade Embiid at any point in his career for prime LeBron James. Are you out of your damn mind? Did you watch prime LeBron James? I don't think you watched him. I don't think you watched prime LeBron James if you just typed that in the chat. Anyway, if they get Durant, they can let Buddy Hield walk, Paul Reed walk, Tobias definitely out. Bring in Durant, Drummond, and Monk, then re-sign Oubre. They could go into the tax apron too. You don't have to be under the salary cap. There's 2 aprons, so keep that in mind too. When you say we have $55 million in cap space, if look, Maurice, I love this comment, and if Daryl Morey would pull this off somehow, I would be absolutely ecstatic. If somehow this offseason, Daryl Morey would bring in Kevin Durant, Andre Drummond, Malik Monk, and re-sign Kelly Oubre, yes. Yeah, the Sixers are actually a championship contender at that point. That seems like a lot because the Bulls are overvaluing Drummond every offseason, it feels like. Malik Monk, I've loved that dude since he was in college, getting drafted into the NBA. I would love Malik Monk on his team, but I don't know what he's going for at this point either. That would be an absolute miracle if Daryl Morey could pull that off. Thank you, DNLPRLS, for subscribing to the channel. Josh Harris got to save money for Washington, so he won't. That's Trey. Shout out to member in the chat, Trey, and you are probably absolutely correct. Josh Harris most likely would never go into a tax apron unless you tell him, look, you finally get out of the second round, your money goes way up. He's only going to make decisions based on what makes him more money. That's what owners do. That's what the Phoenix Suns thought they were doing. And they failed miserably. But yeah, there's my take on that, man. thanks for hanging out for that little talk. And what else we got to look at? Oh, Kevin Durant also hasn't been as injured as everyone acts like he has. Outside of that Achilles tear back in 2021, he's really been relatively healthy. Dings and dangs here and there, knee swelling, whatever. He hasn't missed significant time. He did sprain his ankle like the first game he was supposed to play for the Suns. I remember that. Maybe that was right here in December 2021. But yeah, he's been relatively healthy too the past couple of seasons. So, and if I'm entirely wrong about that, let me know. But I'm pretty sure he's been relatively healthy. What else we got, man? I came across this from Evan Sidery. Outside of the Kevin Durant thing, what do you guys think about this? Let me zoom in real quick. Rival executives are monitoring the potential availability of Malcolm Brogdon leading up to the draft. With Portland's young guards, Brogdon would likely fetch them another first-round pick from a contender if he's made available. Now, I like this a lot. I thought Daryl should have tried to get Brogdon at the trade deadline last year. I guess Portland wasn't willing to offer him up, whatever it was. But when you talk about a player that you want to put next to Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt, just like Kyle Lowry, but younger and more athletic and still has a lot left in the tank and a better defender, it's like a strong, physical, facilitating point guard who doesn't need the ball in his hands, who can catch and shoot, who can play off ball. So you're not taking the ball out of Tyrese Maxey's hands and having a guy like a DeJounte Murray who likes to have the ball and shoot a lot. Somebody like Malcolm Brogdon, I think, makes a lot more sense to get what you want in a defensive-minded point guard who can also facilitate in a half court and give you a little bit more of order and calmness in the half court when things get crazy, while also not hindering the continued development of Tyrese Maxey. I would absolutely love this. Now, if the Portland Trailblazers are looking at this year's draft and Malcolm Brogdon is what age at this point? How old is Malcolm Brogdon? Malcolm Brogdon is 31. So, that's a veteran that you would be bringing in to try to help win with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey for the next couple of seasons. Portland, I don't know how high his value is at this point. If you could get Malcolm Brogdon by just trading the number 16 pick, do it right now. Do it yesterday. If you could get Malcolm Brogdon by just trading the number 16 pick in this draft, do it yesterday. Because what is the 16th pick in this draft really getting you that you can use right now? Nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. And if Portland, again, with their young guards, Scoot Henderson and what's his name, man? Anthony Simons and those boys, if they're just like, hey, let's try to stack draft picks and really build something the next couple of years, yeah, I would 100% trade the 16 pick for Malcolm Brogdon pretty much right now. Does that make you a championship contender? There's some other moves that you could make then, because you would still be, saving a lot of that $55 million in cap space. So the Brogdon trade could be one of just a couple of other moves that could happen. I would like to go a lot more in depth in a Malcolm Brogdon trade idea probably soon. But there's my opinion on that. What do you guys think about Malcolm Brogdon, man? It's funny that Derek White is having stinkers this series against us. He has Clay shooting and Giannis defense, bro. It's crazy. Only against the Sixers, man. The Sixers will end up trading for a player and signing another max player, re-signing Maxey, and then filling in the roster, hopefully with Oubre and others. I think this is Philly Sports Hustle. What's good, man? I think this is very likely. I think they're going to. I don't want it to be Paul George. I don't want it to be Paul George. That's what I don't want. What if Daryl Morey could pull off Kevin Durant and Malcolm Brogdon? I don't want it to be Paul George. I think Paul George gives you more than Tobias Harris, but I don't think Paul George gives you what you need in the playoffs. Paul George shrinks just like anybody. He's called playoff P for a reason. I mean, the pressure gets the highest. He starts shooting the ball up the side of the backboard and going 1 for 13. I wouldn't want to give Paul George, and it's also because Durant has 2 years. You'd be looking at a 4-year contract for Paul George. I don't want that. That's where I'm at with it right now. Durant could not handle Eastwood's criticism if he saw Kevin Durant not giving 100% effort. Listen, I before the start of next season, I will purchase at least 50 Roku remotes because I smashed one in the Knicks series, and so I think smashing remotes is something. If Kevin Durant was on this team and he's showing in a regular season that, you know, like you just said, giving less than 100%, yeah, there would be some smashed remotes happening. But, you know, lucky for me, it's content at the end of the day. Sometimes I see people out, man, and they're like, damn, man, sucks for you, the Sixers lost. And I'm like, yeah, it does. I want to see them win with a passion, you know. It sucks every year they lose. But also, at the end of the day, people like my reaction to them continuously being the worst run franchise in the history of sports. And so my frustration equals views and money for me at the end of the day. So it's just a sport, really. It doesn't mean the world to me. But I would definitely like to see the Sixers win. But also, you know, the more confused and whatever they have me, the more the content spikes. So whatever. I got a lot of views off of the Tobias Harris stuff, man. I got a lot of views off of the Ben Simmons stuff. Let's see. It does not take rocket science to know that you need an athletic rebounder that plays good defense to win. Yes, that is absolutely something they need. But who is that person, you know? Who is that person? We thought the rebounder was Paul Reed. He became completely unplayable in the playoffs. Paul George is light years ahead of Tobias. For the most part, yeah. He just kind of does the same thing Tobias does in the playoffs. Shrinks, disappears. Paul George, you know that tweet, Kevin, that said Jason Tatum is the Michael Jordan of Tobias Harris's? I really think Paul George is the Michael Jordan of Tobias Harris's. Maxi Caruso, Denny, Kuzma, Embiid, Payne, Oubre. Maxi Caruso. We're talking about a Wizards trade here? We're talking about a Bulls trade and a Wizards trade? Denny Avdia, Kyle Kuzma. I like Kyle Kuzma a lot. I know people... you can't throw contract out there when you talk about Kyle Kuzma. He's making $19 million. Like, Kyle Kuzma's good, and I think if you get him in a situation where he feels like he has a chance to win, he'll give you a lot more effort than he's given in Washington. Maxi Caruso, Denny, Kuzma, Embiid, Payne, Oubre, Council, Patrick Williams, and a backup center. Yeah, but who's the backup center, you know? But I like that. I do like that. I like that a lot. There was a couple other things that I saw on Twitter today that I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah. The Houston Rockets. They'll be the first team since the Philadelphia 76ers to draft in the top 4 in 4 consecutive seasons. The Philadelphia 76ers drafted in the top 4 for 4 consecutive seasons and got Joel Embiid out of it. Jahlil Okafor, Ben Simmons, and Markelle Fultz were the other 3. Jahlil Okafor, Ben Simmons, and Markelle Fultz were the other 3. That is wild. If drafted correctly, or if your franchise doesn't have a curse on it that was put on it hundreds of years ago, that's what happened. Somebody put a curse on the Philadelphia 76ers hundreds of years ago for something completely unrelated to basketball. Or like the first 2 guys that invented basketball got in a fight over the peach basket, and somebody put a spell on the other guy, and he happened to be near Philadelphia. I don't know how it happened, but there is a curse on the Philadelphia 76ers. And if they didn't have a curse, you know, you put together a young team like this, like the Rockets are doing something that I think the Oklahoma City Thunder did. This is what drafting correctly looks like. Jalen Green, Jamari Smith Jr., Amon Thompson, and they have number 3 pick in this year's draft. And then they go and hire an actual coach that holds players accountable, is defensive minded, and demands 100% effort from his young players, Ime Udoka. If the young Sixers had Ime instead of Brett Brown, Ben Simmons would have been glued to the end of the bench for not shooting the ball, and then he would have got traded. So the Sixers did just a myriad of things wrong in the process, but it is what it is. I just find it interesting that you see teams that get set up in the same situation and seem like they're doing it the right way. And, of course, a clip of Bronny James not missing a single shot in his NBA draft combine workout, and I tweeted and said, already better than Tobias Harris. And this stream was about the possibility of Kevin Durant. Don't you worry, I will very soon be spreading LeBron James to Philadelphia propaganda. It's going to happen. I might save it until next week. I might save it until after. We got to do it before the draft. We got to do it before the draft. There is LeBron James to Philly propaganda on the way. You just wait. Hey, man. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out with me. This has been another episode of Run It Back Philly. I appreciate you guys for being here. We're doing this all season. We're doing this all off season. We're completely making shit up to argue about all off season. And I'm bringing back some shows this off season. I'm bringing back probably the collaboration with A2D that we did last summer. Maybe the collaboration with the guys that we were using of the 4-point play guys. That was a lot of fun. Maybe we can get Greg Melly out of hiding, and we can bring back some collaboration. We're going to be doing a lot of collaborations in the off season because, it's fun to keep the conversation going. And when there's not really anything to talk about, you got to drum up some conversation and have a little bit of fun with it. So, thanks for tuning in. Y'all are the best. Hit the like button. I'll see you very soon.